Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let me make sure I'm up. Guys, we're having a downpour here. So I'm going to try to get this video out now. Alright, we're about to lose power. So this video is probably not going to work at all, if it's not going to go at all. And my television monitor has just gone out. But apparently I'm still showing green, so it does. I'm still up. Damn it, damn it, damn it. I need the video. I need you guys to be able to see it. So let's try this. Let's try it a different way. Alright. I'm going to have to make this remarkably fast because I don't know how much longer this is going to last. So, Trump pulls out of the nuclear agreement. In Trump pulling out the nuclear agreement, you have a problem. Now, assume for the moment, let's take Trump to the side. What does Europe do? Europe is in this predicament where all of them say Iran has lived up to the agreement itself. Fair game. The United States has broken his word and pulled out of this agreement. That is not such fair game. But Donald Trump has assumed that the United States is the #1 economy. We can do whatever we want. Europe, in this case, is not going to allow Donald Trump to act like a petulant, spoiled child, and so Europe is not going to toe America's demands. So the question becomes, fine, Europe, what are you going to do? America has did this. What is your response? Foreign Minister in the UK, Boris Johnson, has essentially given the plan of response for Europe. Now, Dick Morris thinks that they have no response. I'm not in that camp. I'm assuming that these guys are political actors, just like the people here are political actors, and they're going to do whatever they can to take whatever permutation they can to not allow Donald Trump to act like a spoiled brat and show this kind of American supremacy in the world where Europe bows down to whatever the United States does, even when the United States is behaving ridiculously. Well, let's hear about my TV ended, so this is going to look weird initially, but I apologize. This is Boris Johnson explaining the UK position in the House of Commons. Oh, wait a minute. It is doing something. Hold on. All right. This looks strange on my end, but I'll go with it.
Impose American sanctions on Iran. We did our utmost to prevent this outcome. From the moment that President Trump's administration took office, we made the case for keeping the JCPOA at every level. Last Sunday, I traveled to Washington and repeated this country's support for the nuclear agreement in meetings with Secretary Pompeo, Vice President Pence, National Security Advisor Bolton, and others. And my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, spoke to President Trump last Saturday. The US decision makes no difference to the British assessment that the constraints imposed on Iran's nuclear ambitions by the JCPOA remain vital for our national security and the stability of the Middle East. Under the agreement, Iran has relinquished 95% of its low-enriched uranium, placed 2/3 of its centrifuges in storage, removed the core of its heavy water reactor, and thus closing off the plutonium route to a bomb, and allowed the International Atomic Energy Agency to mount the most intrusive and rigorous inspection regime ever devised, an obligation on Iran that lasts until 2040. The House should not underestimate the impact of these measures. The interval needed for Iran to make enough weapons-grade uranium for one nuclear bomb is known as the breakout time. Under the deal, Iran's breakout time has trebled or even quadrupled from a few months to at least a year, and the plutonium pathway to a weapon has been blocked completely. For as long as Iran abides by the agreement, and the IAEA has publicly reported its compliance, Iran's compliance, 9 times so far, then Britain will remain a party to the JCPOA. I remind the House that the JCPOA is an international agreement painstakingly negotiated over 13 years under both Republican and Democratic institutions and enshrined in UN Resolution 2231. Britain has no intention of walking away. Instead, we will cooperate with the other parties to ensure that while Iran continues to restrict its nuclear program, then its people will benefit from sanctions relief in accordance with the central bargain of the deal. I cannot yet go into detail on the steps we propose to take.
Just so we're clear, that's an amazing proclamation. That's not minor. That's actually an amazing proclamation because there are consequences. All of these people walking around, yes, I think Donald Trump is doing a great thing for the... Nonsense. Nonsense. Iran lived up to his side of the deal. We lose the moral high ground if we ever had it in the first place when we pull out the deal. Not to mention, nobody else trusts us at this point for international agreements. We break them left and right. We broke our agreements to Russia. We're breaking our agreements to this. Why on earth would North Korea come up with an agreement with us? Putting that to the side for the moment. What he just said there, as long as Iran abides by the agreement, we will continue to lift sanctions. Now, what that also means is that the United States will place sanctions on anybody who's doing deals with Iran. The question becomes, how does Britain and how does Europe protect their businesses from American sanctions, which Donald Trump has said he will put on companies in Europe if those companies are doing business with Iran. How on earth do they protect their companies from America? That statement by itself means we're going to stand by our businesses doing business with Iran. That's what he means. We're going to continue to do business with Iran, which means you're going to run roughshod. I mean, not roughshod, but you're going to run afoul of what the United States is saying about this. This is fucking amazing. The United States and Europe are bumping heads. And the United States may be, in 60 days or 80 days or how many ever, potentially trying to put sanctions on European companies. This is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. There's another part to this. So let's keep going. He's almost finished.
But I hope to make them available as soon as possible, and I spoke yesterday to my French and German counterparts. In his statement on January 12th, President Trump highlighted important limitations of the JCPOA, including the fact that some constraints on Iran's nuclear capacity expire in 2025. Britain worked alongside France and Germany to find a way forward that would have addressed the President's concerns and allowed the US to stay in the JCPOA, but without reopening the terms of the agreement. I still believe that would have been the better course. And now that our efforts on this side of the Atlantic have not succeeded, it falls to the US administration to
understand what he's saying here. He's saying, look, we had a deal and we wanted to make amendments to the deal without really changing the contents of the deal. I guess he's trying to say we want a side deal on this front. The problem with this is it's not really a deal if you're consistently changing, it's not fair to one of the parties in the deal if one of the other sides, every time they get a brain fart, changes something in the deal. The whole point of it being a deal is the fact that it's a deal. This is not a predatory college loan where this is, this is purely dependent on X and you're like 20 years old and they give you a loan, $50,000 on your... Two countries enter into a deal. Both countries have something they want. And that's what takes place. The deal takes place. One of those countries is reneging in that deal and reneging in a spectacular way. Europe is faced with a decision on what to do. To their credit, they fought extraordinarily hard to try to keep this deal in action. And yeah, he was right. I saw him on Fox News having a conversation, trying to get the audience on Fox News to understand why this deal should be in place and why this deal is good for the security of the United States. And to be honest, the security of Europe. Let's keep going. He's almost done. But the idea of changing deals seems weird to me. It's like it's a deal. The whole point of it being a deal. It wasn't an unfair deal. It wasn't a fucked over deal. It wasn't a horrendous deal. It was a deal. Both sides knew what they were doing when they took the deal. This wasn't one predatory and the other. No, this was the deal. Iran wanted to have stronger ties with Europe. Well, they have their stronger ties with Europe through the course of this deal. They wanted pressure to be released. Pressure was released under this deal. They lived up to the tenets of the agreement. We are not. Europe is continuing to live up to the tenets of the agreement. Let's keep going. I want him to get to his plans. He said he's not going to talk all of his plans because I'm curious what all those plans are. But at the very least, he's going to hit on some of it. So let's keep going. Hopefully the storm's not going to take us away.
Spell out their view of the way ahead. In the meantime, I urge the US to avoid taking any action that would hinder other parties from continuing to make the agreement work in the interests of our collective national security. I urge Iran to respond to the US decision with restraint and continue to observe its commitments under the JCPOA.
That's important. That's talking to us. That's literally talking to us. Please don't take any action that would adversely affect our businesses. That's what he's saying. He's saying it in this polite British way, as Boris Johnson. So polite, put it in terms, put in quotations. But please don't take any actions that would adversely affect our businesses before we hash out what we're going to do with this deal. Meaning, don't put sanctions on our business. Don't attack our businesses with sanctions until we try to hash out what we're going to hash out. Let's keep going. This is fascinating. I know this is... Look, I know politics can be boring, but this is politics on an international scale where they're talking about business. And they're talking about whether or not the United States, with the #1 economy, is going to turn around and try to put sanctions on other people's companies in Europe for dealing with Iran. Iran is stuck by the tenets of the agreement. We're breaking the agreement, and yet the United States is still saying, potentially, we will put sanctions on these other companies in Europe if you guys are doing business with Iran. This is amazing. And Boris Johnson is saying, don't do that. Please don't do that. And telling Iran, I know they're acting poorly. Don't do anything that would break the tenets of the agreement. This is amazing.
We have always been at one with the United States in our profound concern over Iran's missile tests and Iran's disruptive role in the Middle East, particularly in Yemen and Syria. The UK has acted to counter Iran's destabilizing behavior in the region, and we will continue to do so. We remain adamant that a nuclear-armed Iran would never be acceptable to the United Kingdom. Indeed, Iran's obligation not to seek, develop, or acquire nuclear weapons appears without any time limit on the first page of the preamble to the JCPOA. Yesterday, President Trump promised to work with our allies to find a real, comprehensive, and lasting solution to the Iranian nuclear threat. I have no difficulty whatever with that goal. The question is, how does the US propose to achieve it? Now that the Trump administration has left the JCPOA, the responsibility falls on them to describe how they in Washington will build a new negotiated solution to our shared concerns, a settlement that must necessarily include Iran, China, and Russia, as well as countries in the region. Britain stands ready to support that task, but in the meantime, we will strive to preserve the gains made by the JCPOA, and I commend this statement.
Barnett or Dudley or Peterborough.
It goes beyond that. Honestly, it goes beyond that. It's not fall on the United States to come up with a solution. It also falls on Britain and France and Germany and Russia and China to come up what they're going to do to make sure their companies are not adversely affected. One of the solutions that they were talking about coming up with was the World Trade Organization. Kind of making this point that they were going to use the World Trade Organization as, give me 1 second, as a means of trying to contest what's taking place. The problem with this is the World Trade Organization, one of the articles that came out recently showed that Donald Trump was trying to destroy the World Trade Organization. Let's see, where is, sorry, my system is screwed up. We had this kind of light thing, so my system is not what it usually is. All right. So let's see. Okay, maybe I can't show it. Yeah, guys, I'm sorry. My our lights started to flicker in the middle of me doing this video, and as they flickered, I started losing Okay, here we are. Come on. Europe fears Trump is out to kill the World Trade Organization. Now, what I mean, the reason I'm showing this, I'm going to put this at the bottom so you can see it for yourself, and I'm going to end this before it gets too long because the lights are flickering and I literally lost my television screen. The UK has said that it's going to go to the World Trade Organization in order to try to constrain what Donald Trump is doing. Boris Johnson going there saying, look, don't do anything in the immediate that would adversely affect our businesses. Trump and the White House has given them, I think, let's say 120 days or 100 and so days to untie their affairs to Iran. Europe is saying, we are not doing that. We are sticking with this agreement. Who in their right mind would do another agreement with the United States under the conditions where the United States pulled out in such a way? They're sticking with Iran on this because Iran hasn't pulled out of the agreement. They're hoping all sides remain civil, but one of those things in regards to civility is to not attack our businesses. This is fascinating because it boils down to, what is Europe going to do if the United States starts putting sanctions on European businesses? He's saying the United States needs to give us a path forward. No, dude, it's not for the United States to give people a path forward. It's for you to explain, you, all of you, France, Germany, you get all of you, to explain what is your path forward going to be. The United States has just told you to fuck off. What is your path forward going to be? If you say we're standing with Iran in this, great, you should. Iran hasn't broken any deals. It is not this deal. How are you going to do that? What means, what edifice, what legal thing, fig leaf, are you going to use? Not fig leaf, but legal maneuver are you going to use to protect your businesses from the United States, from those sanctions? I understand you're sticking with Iran, that's great, but what are you going to do to prevent the United States from attacking your businesses? That's the part that I'm curious about, and that's the part I'm not really hearing. The World Trade Organization thing is interesting, but Europe has feared that Donald Trump is trying to destroy that edifice. And if Donald Trump is trying to destroy the World Trade Organization, then why on earth would he listen to the World Trade Organization? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'll put the links in the bottom, including the link to the one where they're talking about trying to go through the World Trade Organization in order to stop it. I apologize for my screen acting up. Hopefully the storm doesn't get too bad. If it doesn't get too bad, I may come back. But nevertheless, the UK, France, and Germany are trying to find a solution to this issue, this thicket. And it is a thicket, because within a few months, their companies are going to come under the potential for sanctions by the United States for interacting with Iran. This is amazing that this is taking place, and yet it is taking place nonetheless. So I'm going to end this here. Guys, I am sorry if you guys have given Super Cash or something. I can't necessarily see the screen, so I'm just going to have to take it by faith until I get this fixed. And no one gave anything. And if you did, I apologize. Thank you very much. Alright guys, you have a good one. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks everyone.